Okay, so I think what we'll try now is to do some more couching and with a different shape of bead. So I'm going to use pearls this time. You can see I already colored in this little section here with my Sharpie so that it's green. I'm loving the look of the O beads. The nice swirl and the feeling of movement and the bling bling of the cup chain. So everything's coming together really nicely now. So I'm gonna come up and one thing I want to do, because the pearls are a little bigger than some of the other things that we've been working with, I don't want, if I just go straight from the edge to the pearl, it's gonna shift the pearl a little bit to angle so that the thread is going directly up into, right? When this gets pulled tight, the pearl wants to have where the thread goes into the pelham close to the fabric. But that means that the thread is coming out of the top. And since I'm going to couch these instead of stop bead them, that's going to put my pearl on a weird angle. And the way I'm going to fix that is also when you're couching, the whole of the pearl is farther away from the pelham because it's going to be in the middle of the bead. It's going to leave more space between where the thread comes out and the bottom. And if when you try to lock that down by sewing over the thread bridge in between the beads, it's going to make everything go a little wonky. And so I'm going to actually add a seed bead first, and that's going to let that thread be closer to the height of the bead that I want. And then I'm going to add a seed bead in between each pearl for that same reason. That's just going to give my thread a little more room to breathe without moving the shape of the bead around too much. And I like the copper with this teal color quite a bit. Let's see if that's enough. And I want to start and end with a seed bead so that you're bridging the gap between the height of the pearl and where we want to be with our thread as it enters. I want this to curve a little bit. There's no exact number. I think that's going to be about right. I'm going to go in and I'm going to leave a little bit of space away from the edge. So I'm not right up on the edge there. Okay, so now I'm going to come back and come up right next to, I'm moving with my thumb. I'm kind of putting a little arch in there. I kind of want that to be curved just a tiny bit. So maybe I'll do it like that so I can keep that little tiny arch in there. I'm going to couch in between each pearl. Doesn't matter on which side of the seed bead that I'm on. And again, I'm not going to pull it too tight. But see what it does there? It leaves the pearl perfectly perpendicular to the pelham without distorting the shape because that seed bead is helping absorb the height difference. And my thumbnail is guiding the curve that I want as I put that in. All right, now I think I'm going to do just a line of seed beads. Same way. You can use either a couching technique or a 2x2 technique or a 4x2 technique. 2 more or 3 more? I'm going to start with 2. See where I'm at. Yep, that's good. This line here is going to continue naturally. If I stop a little short on this one. Here we go. And I'll go back in couch. Oh, this is turning out so pretty. I love it. I love copper and silver together. Copper and silver and green go good together. Copper and silver and turquoise go good together. In fact, in the natural stone world, copper and silver and malachite and azurite and turquoise are often found. Together. Okay, I'm not going to go back through this time because I don't need those beads to be in a perfect line. I'm just going to come up about a pearl's width away, and I'm going to again start with a seed bead, pick up a pearl, seed bead, pearl, do I have enough room for a seed bead, a pearl, and a seed bead? We shall see. No. So I think what I will do if you do, that's great. If you don't, here's a trick that you can use. Still don't want to pull the end of that pearl straight down to the pellin, but I don't have enough room. Oops, I tied a knot in this. Okay, so now that I've made a huge mess, I will pull my needle off, and then I wrapped it around instead of going back through. You can grab it like that and pull it off. Okay. I double knotted everything. I have a little knot of thread right at my needle. I've never done that before. I'm just trying to use my nippers to, there, that was going to make it really hard to keep threading. I don't know how I did that. Okay, I use my finger now to flatten the end of that. And slide the needle over the thread. Okay, so because there's not enough room in my space, and I don't want that to change because that'll change the angle, I'm going to share the seed bead that's on the end here with this pearl there. So see how that allowed me to not change the shape of where the end of that pearl is facing, and pull it so that it's facing the pillow. All right, actually that looks quite good. Now I'm going to go back and do the couching in between each pearl and get set up for my next row. I think I'm just going to keep doing this with you because little decisions are getting made all the time, and I'll talk those through. Okay, so now I'm going to come up a seed beads widths apart. If I can, pick up an estimated number of seed beads to fit that space. Start with 5. I don't think that's enough, but I'll see where it gets us. What about 3 more? Once. Seed bead embroidery is very free form. You'll see some that use all one size bead and tiny, tiny, tiny. And it's almost used to paint perfect pictures. In this style, where we're using lots of different beads and lots of different sizes of beads and not just color to make our design, but texture as well, it's much more free form and natural feeling. I like both methods, but this is my favorite way to create. You can try something, and if you don't like it, you just pull it back off. That is the reason that we knot in between each different segment, so that if it gets difficult to pull because of all the couching, you can just cut thread. Okay, I'm going to take that bead off. There we go. Ooh, I'm loving that tip. Depending on how you like to work, if you want an overall I like to design as I go, but you're free to have an overall plan if you prefer to work that way. With a kit, it helps if you have to keep an eye on what beads you have. Kits are such an economical way to do bead embroidery because you're using, like, if that's all the O beads that you want to use for this design, but you have to buy a whole pack of O beads, the cost adds up really quick. So kits are a great way to keep costs down. But you don't have infinite flexibility about how many beads you use where. You have what you have. So you have to design within those constraints. And actually, some of the best creativity comes from designing within constraints. Even when you are not using a kit, you're still designing within constraints. What beads do you have on hand, and how and where do they go? I have about this much thread left from the, I know it's hard to see the thread, but from my palm to my finger. It's going to start to get a little tight. I'm probably going to have to add thread before I finish this little section, which is annoying, but necessary. I'm going to come over, not the width of a seed bead this time, but the width of a pearl, which is a little bit farther away. You can always go just a little bit farther than you think you can. It feels like space is better than crowding. Let's see, just one more. Getting tighter and tighter. At some point I'm going to have to give up on the pearls and just go with I think I'm actually going to go back to the first method on this one and share this end bead from the previous row. Give it a nice wraparound effect. There we go. You can see on the back here it's nice and messy. But there's no huge runs across the pellet. The stiffer this is, the longer your runs can be. But if you're using a less stiff felt, then pulling a long run across will actually distort your shape, so you don't want to do that. So I'm being very conscious always of not getting too close to the edge so that when I trim, I'm not cutting threads. And couching between each bead, just over the top of that thread and right back down. Oops, almost forgot to come up. I didn't get quite far enough back. So I'm just going to take, I don't like the way that has that space there, so I'm just going to take those back off. Go down. And come back a little further. I'm almost letting that wrap around that pearl now as I get into these smaller spaces. Curves give movement and visual interest, so add them where you will. The brain likes curved lines. I think I can get one more row out of this thread. You've got to save enough. This is what will start to happen. There's not enough thread left here to pull out. Okay, this is going to be my clue. I'm going to finish this little space and rethread. One of the things that you have to decide is what the flow is going to look like in your piece. So I have a flow going that's like this, and I kind of want to continue that over here. So what I think I'm going to do in this little bit of a bigger space that I've created is a line. I want to bring some of the same elements that I've used on the left side over here to the right side. So I think I'm going to create a line of pearls and seed beads that go up and divide this space into two. And then I can start to change the direction, but the flow is going to be the same. So that's going to be my next step. So here, these were short little runs of pearls and seed beads, and this one's going to be one long one, and then I'll fill in with seed beads in using different directions. And that will once again add considerably to the texture of the piece.